Welcome back to 321 Retirement, along with Jim and Michelle Fox of Wadadley Financial Group. I am Jacqueline Darcy, and that is the Marine Corps hymn. And they're known by many nicknames, but their most common nickname is Leathernecks. So did you know that the origin of the nickname is actually quite literal, as it refers to the stiff leather collar that the Marines wore as part of their uniform during most of the 19th century? And now that leather collar was intended to protect their neck and throat from bayonet and sword attacks. The leather neck piece that the Marines wore during the 19th century is represented today by the tall, stiff collar of their dress blue uniform. So it's a fun fact for you about the Marines. And I want to introduce two very special Marines that we have as guests today. I've got Thomas Karlick. He is a Marine Corps infantry sergeant, and he is going to be running the Trans-Pecos Ultra Marathon. So we're going to talk to him a little bit about that. But I also have Gabe Castleberry, and he is the executive director of the O3XX Foundation. So we're going to talk to both of them today. So welcome to you both.
Thank you. Thanks for having us on.
Thanks. We appreciate to be on.
So happy to have you both here. So Thomas, I'm going to start with you a little bit here. Tell us about this Trans-Pecos Ultra Marathon that you have going on. It's happening in October. Tell us a little bit about that and how it relates to the O3XX Foundation.
Absolutely. The Trans-Pecos Ultra is a 163-mile self-supported stage race, and that essentially means we have to carry all of our own gear, food. We can resupply on water about every 6 to 8 miles at checkpoints, and it will be held over 6 stages, so 4 back-to-back marathons, and then a 56-mile day, and then the last stretch will be 6 miles to the finish line. This is the second race of this kind that I've done before, along with 25 to 26 other distance style races, marathons, and ultra marathons. And the connection to the O3XX Foundation, as well as my Marine Corps career, is that like many Marines, when I got out, I kind of lost my identity and struggled with post-traumatic stress disorder after combat service. And this became not only my passion, but also my medicine, and I use it now to inspire other Marines as well as to raise funds to help them. And the long and the short of it is that it really helps to signify that although I'm going to run 163 miles across the desert, that's absolutely nothing compared to the battle that we face with our veterans today that have served in combat and the journey that they take with PTSD and injuries on a daily basis.
Now, 163 miles, that is absolutely incredible. I mean, I am not a runner, and I appreciate and admire anybody who can even run 1 mile. I just run for my life, I think, if I put in that circumstance. But 163 miles, how is it that you do that?
It is 90% mental and 10% more mental. I put one foot in front of the other until I crossed the finish line, and that's really how it started. You know, I was not some kind of all-star athlete or, some high school football god. I had a need, and running filled it for me. And I thoroughly believe that you run 163 miles the same way you run a 5K, and that's you just keep moving forward with relentless forward progress until you get to the finish line. That's the easy answer. The long answer is months of preparation, changes in diet, drops in weight to be able to cross-reference that to your pack weight to kind of even out what you would normally run at, and really nutrition more than anything when we're out there pushing that kind of distance. It's what's called a deficit sport. Unlike deficit in finances, the deficit is that my body can only process about 225 calories an hour, and after hour 2, I'll go into deficit as I'll be burning about 600 calories an hour. So it becomes a fine balancing act of making sure that you can finish the race, because if you don't feel right, you'll never make it to the end. And eating concepts with running mixed in.
Jacqueline, I've got to jump in here. I love listening to grunts talk, Marine Corps grunts. We're just a bunch of knuckle draggers, not very intelligent, yet we're talking about deficits and calories. He's tying it into preparation. Thomas, you're awesome, brother. One of the things that I wanted to ask you, and I know you and I have talked a lot, and Gabe and I talk seem like every other day, but you know how there's that voice in the back of your head sometimes it tells you can't do something, you're not going to be able to make this happen. Do you deal with that during these kind of races?
Absolutely, and it even starts at training. I do some motivational speaking in my line of work now, and I talk a lot about the race that I did. It was very similar last year. I ran 170 miles from the north rim of the Grand Canyon to the Grand Staircase. So we're not talking about running across a road here. We're talking about desert terrain, 15,000 feet gain and loss in elevation. It started in training. There was a point in time where in the back of my head, it popped up and it's, hey, you can't do this. You're not a professional athlete. You're going against 200 of the best in the world. How could you possibly do this? And the epiphany that I had is that I really wanted to see what the other side of possible felt like. So many of us hit that wall, whether it's in our career, whether it's in our personal life, whether it's in our financial life, and it just gets too hard and we stop. And we sell ourselves short so often that it becomes habit. As soon as I stopped saying that I should finish this and I started saying I must finish what I started, I found myself in a position where I was, higher in the pack than I was lower. I mean, I finished the Grand to Grand Ultra, I think, in around 30th place, which is very respectable of 250 international runners. There's only a 1,000 that have ever entered, and a whole lot less than that actually have finished.
Wow, man. I just, and Jacqueline knows this about me, I've just stolen your phrase, the other side of possible. So that's going to be used on this radio show a lot. But, I just got to ask you, man, I know you've ran the Space Coast Marathon. For our listeners out there. He has lived in the Space Coast. He ran 4, was it, Thomas? 4 Space Coast Marathons, right? 4
Space Coast Marathons. So that's actually where the idea, the Space Coast is where the dream of being an ultra marathoner came from. Right there in Cocoa Village, for those of you that know that stretch and that long stretch of River Road back there. There was a small running shop, Daddy Ultra Runs. Hernan Garcia ran it, and he's a very accomplished ultra marathoner. And I walked into his shops and saw pictures of him and his gear in front of the pyramids, and I said, I want to do something like that.
That's awesome.
And that's really where the dream started, man. And it's just been something that I've been able to follow through with.
So do you find that having goals, and we'll kind of go back to that dark moment in your life, and there's a lot of listeners that are listening to this and they're thinking, how can I relate this to my finance world, right? How does that work? And one of the things that when you and I were speaking originally, what I started thinking about was, when things are the darkest, when you feel like you're at the bottom and there's no hope, I found that setting those goals and hitting obtainable goals were the things that really helped me get better and not only emotionally, but physically, financially and things like that. Do you find that setting obtainable goals and then building off of those goals, is that kind of how you got started with maybe a 1 mile run? Well, back in our day, I guess it was 3 miles, but then a 5K, then a 10K. Did you do this kind of obtainable goals, or did you just jump pretty much right into ultra marathons?
No, you can fake the funk on a 5K. You're not running 50 miles unless you've done the work.
I love it. You can fake the funk. I love it, man.
Yeah, and definitely, and I don't like to reflect too much on the past, and I've come so far, but I don't think you can get where you're going unless you look back at where you've been. And relating back to the Space Coast, I had made some poor decisions due to untreated post-traumatic stress disorder, and kind of climbed in a bottle like so many veterans do. And I lost my identity. Whether I lost my financial identity because I wasn't. I had just recently lost my job when all of this kind of kicked off, and I walked down my back door and I ran, down River Road, and I lived in a crappy little trailer park, in Cocoa. Now with a 6-figure income and my career and everything put back together, it's hard to even think about those days. But, one step at a time, it was a 5K and then a 10K and then a half marathon and then a marathon. And then let me try a 50K, which is 30 miles, and a 50 miler. And each time I saw tangible evidence that things were getting better in my life, not only did they get better in my running life, but they seemed to give me the confidence to get better in my personal life and in my professional life too. So this was something I could grab a hold of and add meat and potatoes to it every time I finished another race. And it started with a wall full of race numbers because I didn't win anything back then. And then slowly I got faster, and I started to put together distance, and some of them are finishers medals, and some of these things I've been fortunate enough to go out and place in.
Nice, man.
So absolutely.
Well, what about what? And you know, I'm the CFO of the O3XX Foundation, but I didn't want to talk about our organization today. I'm curious, how do you know Gabe, and why did you choose to run on behalf of the O3XX Foundation? And I'll let you go ahead and introduce Gabe as well here.
Absolutely. So Gabe was actually my team leader when I came to the Fleet Marine Force, and gave me some great guidance, sometimes some tough love, but we've kept in touch over the years and definitely had some great memories on my first float, which we ended up in Iraq at the end. We did some time in Kosovo. Not a lot was going on, but did some Kosovo-Albanian border patrol and built up some great memories and a good relationship. He went on with his life, I went on with mine, but we've crossed paths a couple of times, whether it be Facebook or he was in Northern Virginia at one time when I was, living in Northern Virginia. So kept in contact, and we've gone back and forth. Hey, we should do a fundraiser. We should tie something to all these races, and I've worked with other organizations to do fundraising for him. And then this one just clicked, man. I was in a position where I wanted to do another stage race that seems impossible. That people go, man, you just can't do that. And honestly, you can't do it alone. Like, you can, but it's so much easier for me to get out there on a daily basis and put in a 60-mile training week that I just finished. My last two runs I did were with an 18-pound pack on to prep for weight. And when you know that you're giving back, and I believe thoroughly in the laws of reciprocity, reciprocally I get back what I put in, it holds me accountable. And you talk about goals. I mean, if I didn't have people to help me accountable at work every day, I'm not sure I'd be as good at as good as I am at what I do. And the same thing goes for running.
So, Gabe, you were telling me that Thomas was one of your junior Marines back in the day, huh?
Yes, absolutely. Thomas was always a squared away. He was a fantastic field Marine, and he was usually a pretty good garrison Marine. And for those of you that are listening, a field Marine is your field craft and your tactics and your tactical knowledge. He was always one of the best, and always was able to disassemble and assemble the SAW. He was our SAW gunner squad automatic weapon, which was essentially basically our squad version of the M60 machine gun or the 240 Golf. I know I'm getting into nomenclature.
Yeah, I was about to say, Gabe, right now the listeners are going, what is this crazy guy talking about? Tell me, though, were you running, did you ever run a 163-mile PT with him? Did that ever happen?
No, but I faked the funk on a lot of 5K runs, a lot of 3-mile runs, that's for sure. Thomas can attest to that, because I remember distinctly a couple times when we were in Djibouti at Camp Lemonnier that he was like, come on, Corporal, come on. And I was a corporal at this time. He's like, come on, Corporal, we got to go. And I'm like, dude, get away from me. It was just hot. And I was never a runner. I never liked to run until really I got out of the Marine Corps. And honestly, my knees are so thrashed anymore that, I just I find other ways of aerobically exercising. It's just, running really isn't fun to me. I'd rather walk a distance with a heavy load on my back than run, at all. So,
okay, give us a little background on the O3XX Foundation, and as we're going to a hard stop here, and just tell the listeners about the O3XX Foundation and what we're able to do to help Marines.
Sure. So really, the O3XX Foundation, in its pure sense, is we're a group. It's a 501c3, so it is a legitimate nonprofit organization. Our sole existence on this earth is to assist Marine Corps infantrymen and the corpsmen, and on a case-by-case basis. Well, we don't like to turn anybody away, but really, our demographic, our focus is Marine infantrymen and Navy corpsmen who have served overseas or just in the capacity whatsoever, and to help them with transition, really peer-to-peer mentoring, short-term financial assistance. Now, I say that we're not an ATM, We just help with short-term financial assistance, and it's really important for us because the guys that are in the infantry, most of those fellows are most of them are on the front lines and they're hooking and jabbing on a daily basis, and I cannot tell you how many times that I've seen that our guys are fighting tooth and nail for benefits, and you've got a guy who's never seen a day of combat or never been overseas and, claiming to be 100% disabled for something. So it's really, it's just a really crazy dynamic there. So what we do is we help with, really with the peer-to-peer and all those characteristics put together to try to, help a guy be successful.
And Gabe, if our listeners are listening right now, they want to learn more about the foundation. Can you give out the website so they can go and check it out?
Absolutely, Jim. It's O3X, the number 0, the number 3, and it's xx.org, O-R-G. And you can go there. You can see if you click on the causes tab, we can go and you can donate to the Trans-Pecos Fund, or you can take a look around. And we just got the store set up not too long ago, so there's the ability to purchase, merchandise. We kind of have a different few avenues of revenue generation there. So, and then of course we're on Twitter and Instagram. Instagram
Facebook.
Facebook too. Facebook as well. So it's Facebook.com/O3XX Foundation, and then the Instagram is at O3XX Foundation. So we're pretty covered. The nice thing about the foundation is that we're 100% infantry. I think except for our marketing director, she's the wife of an infantryman. But the nice thing about our organization is we're all certifiable. We all have, most of us have combat tours under our belts, so we have that credibility to talk with these guys. Whereas, you go to VA, a lot of times you get Miss What's-Her-Face, who's a year out of college trying to identify with a guy who's done 6 tours overseas, and, a lot of the guys are like, what do you know about what I'm going through? So
such a benefit that we're able to relate to those folks and do that stuff. Well, I know we're running near a hard stop. So Jacqueline, any questions for these strapping young Marines before we punch out?
Well, I just want to chime in and say, good luck to Thomas on his ultra marathon. That's an incredible feat that you're going to accomplish. 163 miles running is mind-boggling to me, but good luck, and I know you'll be great at it. And Gabe, want to thank you so much for joining us today on our show. And if you can, just give out that website one more time for our listeners so they know how they can support the O3XX Foundation.
Sure, it's O3XX.org. That's the number 0, the number 3, XX.org. And thank you so much for having me on.
Well, thank you both for your service, and we really appreciate you being on our show today. And everyone go out there, support the O3XX Foundation, and good luck to you again, Thomas, running.
Thanks, Jacqueline, but I'll take the luck, but I'm going to count on hard work, because if I was still just waiting on luck, I'd be stuck on those 5Ks.
That's right. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And if you want to follow my training, follow me on Instagram at Phoenix Running. And that shows everything that we do on a weekly basis out there to get ready for something like this.
Perfect.
Thanks, guys.
Sounds great. Thanks you both so much for being on the show.
Thanks, guys. All right,
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you to both those Marines for being on our show today. Again, if you want to follow Thomas Karlick's training, you can find him at Instagram at Phoenix Running. Or also go out and support the O3XX Foundation at O3XX.org.